the same place. And I'm like, oh, this works for me. So that was really cool. But I mean, the CZW stuff was like, I mean, DJ High was there, but the main person I trained with was Drew Gulak. So he was in charge of the beginners class, and he helped a lot with the advanced class too. So I spent a lot of time with Drew Gulak while I was over there. He was nice enough to let me ride around with him and do all that kind of stuff. But I mean, the funny story that I always tell from CZW is when I'm there and there's not much else to do, and like it's like the beginners class, and they're like not allowed in the ring yet because they haven't advanced to that point. And they're like, "Do you mind going over there and running some training drills with that guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem. I'm always happy to do whatever you guys want me to help." And then basically it was just they were just like, he was just getting back into it, and so he just wanted to get a taste of it and do all that kind of stuff. And like he was getting us to run actual matches, but instead of taking your time with things, just sprint. So it was like a drill to get his fitness back, but also run through the fitness and do all that kind of stuff like that. So we run like 4 or 5 training matches in a row, just sprinting through the whole thing, and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, "Oh yeah, thanks, man." And I'm just like, I'm like, which one are you again? Like, I'm trying to be a dick. I'm like which, like, you look familiar, like I'm not sure which one. And he's just like, "Oh, I'm Dean Ambrose." I'm like, "Oh, cool." Like he's fucking like Jon Moxley, you know, like. I'm just kind of like, "Oh yeah, no, you're the champ, aren't you?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm CZW champ." Like I was just, oh, oh yeah, cool. So I always have the time on there. Me and
that's hilarious. I just about, oh yeah, I'm Jon Moxley, you know, just the champ.
He's got a real name, you know. It was just like I was just kind of like, "Oh, that's right, you're fucking wrestling as this," and that was the thing. And so then you're looking back at it, and he debuts in the Shield. I'm like, "Oh, I know that guy."
But like when you were training there, like did you ever get, like obviously over in the States, you know, training with Chikara, Ring of Honor, CCW, did you get the opportunities to, like you got some opportunities in some dark matches with the Ring of Honor, but what about Chikara and CZW? Did they give you an opportunity?
CZW, DJ Hyde did not like me. Like not personally, he just wasn't a fan of my wrestling. I just didn't. He just didn't rate me. So he I just never really got an opportunity there. Shikara, 2 years in a row, 2018 and 2019, me, Mick Moretti, and Adam Hoffman are the finalists in King of Trios.
Oh wow!
So, yeah, we've nearly won King of Trios 2 years in a row. So yeah, we got some opportunities with Shikara because we had we had a better relationship with Shikara. But yeah, see, I just wasn't a fan of him. So I mean that happens sometimes. There's actually a funny one because I think the second time I went there, the 2300 arena was being renovated and they were getting kicked out. I think someone had bought it and they'd taken it over, and so they had set up their training facility in like a smaller building across the street. And I hadn't been there because they just didn't have training on. I just went at the worst possible time for that second period for that second training period to see him. But what they did have was they held a Kevin Nash seminar. So I think it's still on High Spots. I think you can still watch the CZW Kevin Nash because they filmed it. And so it was me and Grizzly Redwood. And we went up there, and you can see me sitting in the background of this Kevin Nash seminar while he's giving his talks and does stuff like that. And so I think we were the second match. I think the first one was DJ and guy's name escaping me. Sammy
Callahan.
Callahan, that's it. Yeah, they did a training match, and he talked over that. The second one was me and Grizzly Redwood. So. You can kind of hear him off camera. And this is the problem. Like DJ got me and Madison Eagles confused. So what's happened is like I've fired up with him, Grizzly, and Grizzly's shorter than me, so I've kind of like done some takedowns and I've done different stuff with him. So he's but I'm pretty smooth with the mat wrestling. That's the thing I like to practice is the chain wrestling. That's my thing. So you can actually kind of hear something. I know what was said now in retrospect. He said he's gone over to DJ and he said, "Is that guy an amateur wrestler? Like, does he know amateur wrestling?" And DJ's gone, "Yeah." And he's going, "Have you done anything like that?" And he goes, "I think he did some, he definitely did some amateur wrestling training and did this different stuff like this." I have never done any amateur wrestling in my entire life. Madison Eagles, I think, trained with the Olympic team. So he's got to be in, because we were there at the same time. So, like, it's easily confused. I can understand it. But what's happened is he also hasn't heard me speak. So he's assuming that I'm American. So like we've gone when he's giving advice, he goes, because you're wearing, I think I was wearing my gear, or he asked me about my gear. He says, "What are you wearing?" I said, "I wear trunks." And he goes, "Well, you should wear an amateur singlet. Like you obviously have an amateur wrestling background." And I was going, "No, I don't." And he's like, "Well, maybe you do now. Like your wrestling looks smooth. Maybe you pretend you can be like an all-American American." And I was going, "I'm Australian," like in the most Ocker accent. And then I'm just like, and as soon as I've said it, I'm just going, "Why am I calling out Kevin Nash?" Like, what am I doing? Like, why did I do that? Like, why? I could have said it in a much less dickish way. Like, or I could have just gone.
What was his reaction? Was he like, "What the fuck," or did he just go, "Oh, whatever"? Like,
I'm not going to ruin Kevin Nash's day. He doesn't give a shit. That guy's so cool. Like, he was just like, he was fucking amazing. He wasn't upset or anything. It was just in my head. I'm just going, why did they say that? Like, but no, I went up to him afterwards. I went, "Oh, sorry, man. I didn't mean to come across like that." He goes, "No, brother, you're cool." He's the tallest person I've ever stood next to. Like, a lot of the guys, you meet them and you're like, "Oh, you're tall, but it's not that big a deal." I'm looking up at Kevin Nash. Like, he was incredible. So that was great. So that's one of those. Yeah, that's my mental associations with CZW. The time I trained with Jon Moxley, Drew Gulak in general, and the time I was a dick to Kevin Nash for no reason.
I tell you what though, training with Drew Gulak would be like, he is a phenomenal wrestler. Like the stuff that he's done in WWE, he just hasn't really been given much of an opportunity over there. But like, I've watched a lot of his stuff from the Indies and CZW and PWG, and that guy is just phenomenal. Like,
Gulak's
amazing.
Drew Gulak is fucking man. There's no one. He's just He's the best. I love him. He's the exact style of wrestling that I like to watch. He's just hard-nosed, straightforward killer. He's great.
Oh, he's amazing.
I can't recommend Drew enough.
So you came back and you joined up with PWA. So how did that sort of come about? Like, obviously, you mentioned like Madison Eagles vouch for you. Was that before you went to PWA, or was that after?
No, that was after. So I mean, again, especially early on, a lot of the Australian feds were antagonistic with each other. So like, if you worked for one, you weren't allowed to work for another, and that was AWF and PWA. But PWA was then and still is now like the center of like women's wrestling in Australia, and that's because of Madison. Like it's been owned and run by Madison for years in some capacity, and it's been her life's work to have women's pro wrestling like be an important thing, not be a joke, not be the piss break match, like not be there as TNA, like serious proper women's wrestling. That's her thing. That's her vision that we've tried to enact as much as possible. And so at the time, I was my girlfriend was Shazza McKenzie, who was a female wrestler, and she was invited to the PWA school to work at PWA, because at the time it was Jessie McKay, aka Billy Kay, was there, and Madison. They didn't really have a lot of other female options. So when they saw Shazza wrestling, like, "Oh, she's pretty good. We'd like to have her be part of our women's stuff here as well." And they had a training facility that was just down the road, and me just wanting to do everything I can in wrestling, I went with her.
Absolutely, take your gear, brother.
So we just started training there, and then it was just kind of like it was just a little different, like it was like we had the AWF had that camaraderie with a lot of the guys. There were a lot of very good wrestlers there, but PWA was a lot more plugged into like the indie stuff and like the current, like, this is what's cool on the lower level, whereas AWF, most of the guys were like WWE, kind of like, it was more marketable than it was like the serious indie kind of shit. And that's important, it's stupid to try and compete with WWE and do things the way they do things. You've got to find something different when you're small. If you can't be better, be different. So they had a lot more of that stuff going on. And I've always just been a big believer in learning from multiple masters. Like, if you learn from the same person all the time, you're only going to get so good. If you learn from different people, even if like you have the best wrestling trainer in the world, you're still going to be better off learning from the best wrestling trainer and the second best wrestling trainer. Like, you've got to go around and have different experiences and work with different people. And so, I just tagged along with her and I enjoyed it. But I was doing both, and I never would have stopped doing both, except for the fact that the AWF promoter found out and said, "Oh, if you do that again, then I'll stop booking you." And I went, "Well, fuck you. I'm going to keep